Are you a chiropractor with a struggling practice, having a hard time finding and keeping patients? Is your staff falling short of expectations? I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and DC Trainings has the answers that you need. So tune in now and find out how.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to DC Trainings. I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer. It's great to be with you today. It's a beautiful, sunny spring day. And what better environment and day than to have time to talk about chiropractic, right? We have the greatest profession in the world, in my humble opinion. And we are growing in leaps and bounds. We have more patients seeking after our healthcare than any year in my 27 years in practice that I can remember. And it's just been great to be a part of this momentum with you as we design our practices and streamline our practices to be able to maximize our service with chiropractic care. And I think that's, as we're wrapping up module 2 today, it's important to recognize this because we're always going to be bringing new people into our chiropractic healthcare paradigm. Translation, we're always bringing new patients into our practices, right? So we want to make sure that when people come in and they enter this new paradigm, potentially new, or potentially something that, at least it's new with you, as they enter this new paradigm, that we roll out the red carpet and we make a great first impression, and that we determine how it is that we're going to be able to help them and let them know that, right? So that's this first module 2 is the new patient module. It's when we welcome somebody into our world, for lack of a better way to say that. And so today's topic, which is about the reactivating new patient, it encompasses that whole sequence. And that whole sequence is important, not only from the standpoint of the people who are coming into chiropractic for the first time, but also for those people who are coming back into chiropractic with you after being out of it for a little while, or being at least gone from your practice. So obviously the fact that they're coming back to see you means that they want to receive chiropractic care, excuse me, and that in some way you helped them before, so they're seeking it out again. So we want to recognize that and have that as sort of the framework of how we dive into our topic today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do that, because I want to get through these topics today. And then I also want to wrap up this module maybe real quickly before I jump into the new topic, into today's topic. Sorry, just to frame this, because this is an important announcement. We normally, historically, would have had a seminar to kick off each module, right? We have a live seminar, we all get together, and that kicks off an 8-week cycle with that live seminar. In recent years, because more and more doctors are doing their coaching and training virtually, we've actually been able to provide a lot of the information without starting it off with a live seminar. So our approach now, which has seemed to work very well, is we have 2 live seminars per year, and the other modules kick off just right where the one before that ended, right? So in this case, we're ending module 2, which now I want to go ahead and share my screen. So we're finishing module 2, and we're going to kick off right into module 3 next week. So we've had this whole 8-week run broken down week by week to really instrumentally or sequentially show you how to implement the new patient sequence. And by doing this, you've been able to either introduce people into the chiropractic paradigm for the first time, or you've been able to introduce people into your chiropractic paradigm because they're coming to see you for the first time. And then as I started, I was saying that today's topic, as you can see on the screen, is the reactivating new patients, which means that they're returning to see you, and we're going to reintroduce them to our chiropractic paradigm, if you will, our approach, our chiropractic care, and we're going to jump into a new chapter with them. And this time, hopefully, they're happy enough that they stay with us for years and years and years to come, so that we can provide them with the best chiropractic care and keep their health at a high threshold so they can enjoy the best quality of life and have their health to back them up. Okay, so So today we're going to do this recap. So let's dive into the reactivating new patients and talk about how important this is in terms of making that great first impression. I just want to recognize, because on our call today, we have a lot of CAs, which means for me, that's wonderful, because CAs, that means that you're getting more and more involved in the new patient part of the process. And, I think historically we can all agree that most CAs are hired and trained specifically for the front desk. They run and manage the appointments, the front desk, the payments in that area. But a lot of the clients that come into DC trainings, the new doctors that I work with, have not experienced a practice, or at least in their own experience, where the CAs are actually managing the new patient process. They're actually streamlined, and they're involved in that whole process of education and sequences and all of that. So it's great to see a lot of CAs on our call today. So thank you for joining and being a part of this. Okay, so let's get into the step for reactivating new patients with the mindset that we want to make sure that when they come back to see us, that we onboard them or we transition them back into care with as few subluxations in the process as possible, as few hiccups as possible, because they were happy with us before, they're going to be happy with us again. How fast can we get them from point A to point B, right? And that's what they're looking for. They know how it works. They know how we took care of them before. Let's provide that in a as comfortable way as possible. So one thing I just want to mention, because in Module 6, when we come to that in November, we'll be talking about how important your marketing strategy is. And having a really dynamic marketing strategy is important to bring in new patients into our offices and our practice. A big part of that marketing needs to be focused on patients who have, for whatever reason, have left your practice. So if we have our marketing in place, and in Module 6, that's called reactivation marketing. So we're marketing to reactivate former patients. In the reactivation marketing sequence, as you've been plugging that into your practice, you're probably seeing a lot of patients that have, for whatever reason, dropped out of care, but now they're returning to see you. And that's why on the screen, we call this the leaky bucket, right? We have a bucket of water, the water's pouring in, that's your new patients coming in, and then the water's leaking out, that's the attrition, or the patients that are active, but then they leave your practice. So the goal is if you want to maintain a successful practice, to have an equal amount of water that's pouring in as the amount of water that's leaking out. That way you maintain your practice volume. If you're wanting to grow your practice, then you want to have less water leaking out and more water pouring in, right? That fills your bucket even further. So as again on the screen, that's the leaky bucket concept, right? We want to keep our bucket as full of water as possible. If we're doing our reactivation marketing correctly, as I taught you in Module 6, as many as half of all new patients that come into your office may be returning former patients, meaning that they left for whatever reason, but they left on a good note, they left on good terms, and when their perceived need comes back, right, because it's on them, they decide, hey, you know what, it's time for me to go get adjusted again. When their perceived need comes back, who's the first person they're going to call? Well, hopefully it's you. So that's really important to make sure you keep that in mind. I'll just use a little example real quick, because in my office, we don't send out patient statements. Now, I know some of you do, and that's fine, but I don't, because I make sure that all of our financial arrangements are buttoned up and tidied up in the office. And when a patient discontinues for some reason, there is no balance due, right? We don't have, it's on rare exceptions, which I'll name one, but they don't have a balance due. So that way, money is not an obstacle to people coming back in to see us. We want to have as smooth of a transition for them to come back in. And if there's a balance due and they leave and then they get a bill from us, right there, that's a big barrier to them feeling comfortable about returning. So I thought I would share that as an example. The one exception that comes up is, I have a little story, but I had a PI case that I took care of, and the patient, his name was John, and he said he didn't have med pay, And I said, we're going to need to have you either pay for your care as you go, and then your insurance will reimburse you afterwards, or we need you to get an attorney. And he said, I have a friend who's an attorney. He's going to represent me. He's a good friend. He'll take good care of me. And in my early years of practice, I hadn't learned my lessons yet. And I said, okay, that's fine. So the attorney took on his case, and he was representing him. And because they were friends, the attorney, when he got the insurance check, he gave the entire check to the patient, to John. And John spent it. And when I called the attorney to say, hey, we need to get payment on this PI case, he said, oh, that's between you and the patient. Well, the bottom line was that two things happened. One, it was a friend of his. He gave him the check, and he literally told me on the phone that John had just bought a ticket and went to Hawaii on vacation. And then at the same time, I had a CA who was relatively new and didn't understand the importance of having a signed lien. She had the patient sign the lien, not the attorney. So the attorney was not on the hook, and the patient walked. So in that case, that's the one instance where I sent the patient to collections. I sent him a bill, he didn't pay it, I sent him to collections. But I just said as a side note, because the majority of the time we don't send out patient statements. Okay. All right. So let's go through this. If marketing is done correctly, then reactivating new patients will be a daily occurrence, right? We want to make sure that we're doing our marketing correctly so that on a daily basis, there's patients that are coming back to see us. Now, picture this, because you might have a patient who is feeling great with their adjustments, and you're taking great care of them, and they're really excited, but they get the wrong idea, in that they're feeling great, so they think, I don't need to get adjusted anymore, so they discontinue care. They discontinue care, and then a week or two or a month goes by, and they realize, what have I done? I haven't been getting adjusted, and now all those problems, those aches and pains are coming back because I haven't been getting adjusted. I need to go back in. So that could be a reactivating patient, either a new patient or a patient, just because they didn't realize how good they had it. And as soon as the chiropractic care was not part of the equation, then they realized how good they had it, and then they come back in. So we want to make sure that we're always inviting our patients to come in and to return to see us. So by doing that, we might have, in the example I just described, we might have patients that have only been gone a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, but they're realizing, gosh, it was so great when I was getting adjusted. I really need to get back in there. And as long as you're staying in contact with them in some ongoing marketing funnel or marketing sequence, right, so that you remain top of mind, when that need comes back, you'll be the first person that they call. So we want to make sure that we stay what I call top of mind for all of our patients. Okay, so you can probably hear a siren in the background. Oh, by the way, I just want to share something with you. This is pretty neat. Let me open this up real quick, because behind me is a cabinet, and you may have noticed that in the background. I just found this cabinet. It's a very old, it's over 100 years old. It's an old cabinet. And it reminded me of the cabinets that B.J. Palmer had, where he kept his green books. So I have, and I know Dr. Knitsch is on the call, so welcome to the call, Dr. John. And we've talked about this, that I have a complete set of first edition green books. It's almost priceless. I happened to find one, and I just said, I have to get the whole set. So I did. My wife was not happy with me about that because it wasn't cheap, but I just thought, to have an opportunity to actually get an entire collection of first edition green books written by B.J. Palmer, some of which are signed by B.J. Palmer, I just couldn't pass it up. But I found this cabinet behind me, and that's the type of cabinet that BJ would keep his books in. And so I picked it up, and I'm having a patient of mine is going to refinish it, and that way I can keep the books in a replica cabinet like the ones that BJ Palmer had. So anyways, that's behind me. I can lean back a little bit, and you can see it, but that's the cabinet. Okay, anyways. So yeah, it is a great day to talk about chiropractic, just like I said at the very beginning. Okay, so here's the outline, and this outline is going to be similar to what we talked about with our new patient flow, but sort of as a recap. So you can picture this as, here comes a new patient who was a former patient, and we're going to sort of recap the same process, because they've been through it before, but we don't want to make it too repetitive for them to go through the entire sequence again. Or you could look at this as, I'm learning this and I'm integrating this into my practice as I learn the module 2 steps in the new patient series. And now we're going to do a recap so that you make sure all the pieces fit together to give the best first impression for your new patient. So we start with the memorable welcome by the reception CA. And that's the start. And the reason for that is that we want them to come in and feel an exceptionally great presence in the office. A memorable welcome means not your typical doctor's office, right? In fact, I just went to a doctor's office recently, a medical doctor's office, and the reception, I watched this receptionist and I just thought, I am so glad that I don't have an office like that. I mean, as much as I know that's not the nicest thing to say, but I just realized it was cold. There was no eye contact. There was no smile. There was no memorable welcome at all. In fact, it was memorable completely to the opposite. It was basically the impression of, you're bothering me. How can I help you? Let's get on with it. Anyways, not to pick on somebody, but I just had that experience recently. So let's separate ourselves. Let's make ourselves stand apart from what seems to be the general norm in doctors' offices where patients go. We want to stand out. So the memorable welcome means, hi, John, it's great to see you today. We've been expecting you. Thank you so much for being on time. We're really glad to meet you. Did you happen to bring your insurance card for me? Do you have one you'd like us to verify? Yes, I do. Okay, great. I'll take that. And oh, by the way, thank you so much for filling out your patient information form online. We've already prepared your file for you, so we're ready to go. You can have a seat in the lobby for just a moment, and I will be right with you. Boom. That's a memorable welcome, right? We covered a lot of points in there that you can go back and look at the script for, but that's a memorable welcome by your reception CA. From there, we want to have our new patient CA come out and escort the patient to the consultation room. It could be the same CA, that's fine, or it could be that you have a new patient concierge CA, CA who is going to take that new patient back. So either way, they're going to then get brought back to a consultation room. Now, I want to expand on this for a moment because some of us have patients where they've actually been through this process a few times. We call them echo patients because they leave and then they come back, and then they leave and then they come back, and they do that over and over. And that's fine. We love them. They're a lot more work, but we still appreciate taking care of them. So in terms of an echo patient, they may have been through this process quite a bit. So you may decide, rather than sending them into a new patient consultation room, you might just send them into an adjusting room and do this process sort of on the fly, if you will, so that we don't make it such a big barrier to entry, because we know they're probably going to do it again, right? So just know that you could fast track that if you need to. We've had new patients that we've seen come back several times, and we don't even have them fill out a patient information form. We just have them fill out an ouch form, and then there's a spot on the ouch form for the office notes. I write my exam notes right on the ouch form. My CA writes the consultation notes on the ouch form. Essentially, we just take the patient into the private room, do a brief consultation. I come in, do a brief examination. We write our notes on an ouch form, something super simple, and then away we go, right? So it could be that it's that abbreviated. And the reason why I wanted to dive into that is because where it says on the screen, a consultation room, you may have a patient who's been with you for years and they sort of come and go and they don't want to go back into a consultation room. They just want to get to the adjusting table and get adjusted. And that's okay, but we do have certain steps that we want to complete to make sure we have accurate information when we're going to be taking care of this person. So we can escort them to the appropriate room to do their exam. A new consultation is performed, right? So we do that brief consultation. It could be that it's a full in-depth consultation. It could be that it's a brief one, as I described on the ouch form, but either way, we do a new consultation. Then the doctor comes in, right? Now, doctors, once again, and I've said this before, but I want to make sure if you're a relatively new doctor or your practice is a little smaller, you have one CA. Doctors, while your CA goes into the room to do this consultation, you need to have somebody at the front desk. You should be up there. You should have your team involved in patient care. It builds confidence, it builds tenure, it builds longevity with your team. And so if it means that you need to go run the front desk for a few minutes while your CA does a consultation, fine, that's okay. Make it work in the way that's most beneficial to your patient and beneficial for your team to become experts in their field. So so then the doctor comes in and completes the examination. I want to just note on this because it says on the screen, as the doctor, I'll decide whether or not to provide an adjustment. So if a patient comes back and let's say they have been that echo patient, they've been coming and going for quite a while, and many times, in fact, and each time they come and go, I'm left saying, I think you should come in more often. I'm watching your spine and it's not responding as well as I would like to. But a big part of that is because I don't see you very often, right? So if you want to elevate the level of concern around their condition because it's potentially going downhill, one way to do that is to do an exam of the patient. And then as you complete the exam, doctors say, I have some concerns. And the concerns are based around how stable your condition is or how responsive your condition is to the care that I'd like to provide for you. And because I'm concerned about these findings, I need to do some additional tests before I adjust you. So I'm going to go ahead and get these tests done. I'm going to study those tests, and then I'm going to have you come back in either later today or first thing tomorrow. And when you come back tomorrow, then I'll be comfortable I feel like I'll be comfortable adjusting you, or I'll tell you, boy, it's a good thing I didn't. Either way, I'm not going to do an adjustment now because I'm concerned about these findings. So you are able to be in control on this, doctors, and I don't want you to feel like you need to give in to the pressure of a patient who's saying, hey, I'm here for the 12th time in 3 years. Why won't you just adjust me like you did every other time? Well, it may be because you see some indications that their condition has deteriorated because they're not managing it well, right? So, I'll use kind of what I feel is probably not the best example because I'm not into pharmaceutical products, but let's suppose that a patient goes in and sees their medical doctor, and the medical doctor writes a prescription for whatever, an antibiotic. And then the patient runs through that, and then they call back, a week later or 10 days later and say, hey, that didn't work. And the doctor says, okay, well, let me go ahead and prescribe one more round, and let's see how that works. So the patient does that. Well, then at the end of that series, if the patient called back again and said, that didn't work, I need another prescription, you as the doctor would probably say, hey, we went through 2 rounds of this. Your condition hasn't resolved. I need to see you again before I just blindly write a prescription for you to go out and refill it. I need to see you first to assess your condition. So it's that type of approach that I'm talking about. And again, not to compare chiropractic with pharmaceutical approaches at all, but it's that kind of authority, doctors, that you need to take when you're deciding whether or not you're going to adjust them on that visit. You might, and I know it's kind of an old saying, but there's an old saying that says, sometimes you have to lose the battle in order to win the war. Losing the battle would mean I'm not going to give an adjustment today because I want to win the war. I want to make sure in the big picture that your condition is stable and remains that way, so we don't have this up and down or back and forth issue that I'm seeing. Okay, so just wanted to kind of emphasize that, because just don't feel like you have to always bow down to the patient's request when you know in your heart that it might not be in their best interest. Okay, so then we're going to do any additional tests, right? You might decide that you want to get an x-ray. You might decide you don't need an x-ray. You might decide to do some range of motion. I would recommend that you do something to emphasize that this is a new exam and you're getting a new batch of information about the status of their condition. Some information that just makes this a little bit separate and distinct from a routine adjustment. Why do I say that? The reason why I say that is because you want this to be separate and distinct from an ongoing visit or a normal adjustment, a regular adjustment. You want it to be, because they're coming back in to see you, and you don't want them to just jump back into this, I'll just show up when it's hurting approach to chiropractic care. Now, you may have a patient that was never in that mode. They followed recommendations like you did, like you recommended. They got great results. They had good rhythm with their adjustments. And then they moved out of the area for 2 years and continued their chiropractic care at their other location, and then came back and they want to continue with their chiropractic care again. A great patient, her name's Caitlin, and this just happened. So she left actually for 5 years, and then she just moved back to our town, and she was under chiropractic care when she was gone. We just picked up where we left off. So in that case, I'm not trying to set a new pattern, but in most cases where a patient leaves and then they're not getting chiropractic care, we want to make sure that we have some additional tests that show and distinguish this as a new approach or a new timeline where they're going to get different results than what they were getting when they weren't getting adjusted at all. That makes sense? Different results than what they were experiencing without chiropractic care. So we want to have that real distinction, and the best way to do that is to add additional tests to show what the new findings are. Then we schedule a report of findings. So we schedule the report of findings. It says on the screen that the spouse attendance is optional, meaning that if, in this patient, Caitlin, I'm sorry, I keep saying Caitlin, her name's Claire. Great patient though. I took care of her for years, and she's back. It's great. So for Claire, I'm sorry, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but the spousal attendance. So let's suppose that when she came in originally, that she brought her husband with her, and I gave the husband stretches to help her with, and she did all of that, and then she continued with her chiropractic care, but he didn't. And ideally, of course, when a spouse comes to the report of findings, they are educated on the importance of getting chiropractic care, and they then sign on and become a patient at the same time. That's ideally. If this person's spouse was coming in with them and they were both getting adjusted and then they left, I probably am not going to recommend that the spouse come back to the report of findings. I'm just assuming that the spouse will come in eventually anyways, right? However, if the spouse never came in and I did show them stretches and exercises to help with, but they never came in as a new patient, this might be a good time to revisit that and say, I'm going to ask that your spouse come with you again. I'm seeing some findings here where your condition has slid backwards, and I want to make sure that we really get that turned around as quickly as possible. So just like we did last time 5 years ago, I'd like your spouse to come with you in order to help you with some of the things that we're going to need to do to get your condition stabilized. So you can, once again, ask for that to be a part of their care plan or their report of findings, but it could be optional. Okay, so here's a side note, and this is important. So it took the whole screen right here, right? Find the real reason the patient discontinued their original care plan, right? I'm using this example of Claire. She moved away. Okay, that's a legitimate reason to stop chiropractic care. I understand you don't live here anymore. Great. If that's not part of the equation, make sure you find out the reason. So if they're coming back in, and let's suppose that they were not getting the results that they anticipated, right? They were still hurting after their adjustments. Maybe they're here because they're desperate, but there's going to be that skepticism that's holding in their mind. I hope I get results this time because I didn't last time, right? So you want to address that, and it might mean that you need to change how you're adjusting them. I had a patient recently, she fell into this category, and it turned out we were doing a side posture low back adjustment, and it was hurting her, but she loved the neck adjustments. So she came back, and then she explained that to me with her low back, that it was still hurting. So we changed the style of adjusting. I have a drop table. So we started using drop table adjustments for her without the rotation. I guess her lower back was a little more sensitive to rotation. She loves the drop table adjustments for her lower back and the same adjustment she had before for her neck. So now we have the best of both worlds. And boy, I'm sure she's going to continue with her care long term because we've solved that issue. What if the reason why they left before was because of cost? Maybe the cost was expensive for them, and excuse me, but they're desperate because they're hurting. If they come back in now and we again, drop this cost on them, well, they might pay for a little bit because they're hurting and they're desperate. But big picture wise, if we don't solve this now and find something that's affordable on a longer term basis, they will once again drop out and we'll lose that patient. So we want to make sure that we find that out. So painful adjustments, we want to know that for sure. If it was a cost issue, we want to know that for sure. Maybe it was a time issue. Maybe the length of time that it was taking to come in for the appointments was an issue. Maybe it was an issue with the distance that they were traveling to come and see you, right? All of those things need to be factored in. Maybe it was the frequency of how often they were being asked to come in. Maybe it shouldn't be an all or nothing scenario. Maybe we were asking them to come in 3 times a week. It was just too much for them, so they stopped. But if we had them come in once or twice a week, that would be a world of difference, and they would love to be able to continue with their care. So find out what it was from before and make sure that you address that. Really important. All right, so here's where we transition into the summation of Module 2, the new patient module, okay? So these are the lasting impressions after the first visit. When we started, we educated them, right? So now they can say and define what a subluxation is. This may have been a word they never even heard of before, but now they can say and define that word. So that's a huge education process that they've accomplished, right? They feel strongly, I came to the right place. I'm in the right place. This is great. They can help me with my health goals and pursuits. The doctor, the patient knows the doctor and staff understand my problem and they're knowledgeable about my condition, right? If you do this in a way where you really demonstrate and illustrate that you know the condition, the subluxation, and how that can affect people's health, and subsequently that means you understand the problem, you want that confidence instilled in your new patient. You want them to feel like, oh, aha, this is so great. I've been to so many doctors' offices. They couldn't figure this thing out. I have arrived in an office where they know what's going on. They understand what I'm going through, and they are going to have a solution that they can help me with this, okay? They realize my condition's worse than I thought. Now, this is also important because when somebody has, say, back pain or headaches, oftentimes they don't realize that it's not just, the absence of Tylenol floating through their bloodstream. I know I've said that, some of you have heard me say that before, but we kind of say that tongue in cheek, and I get a chuckle out of it because the pharmaceutical industry would love for you to think that the reason why you get headaches is because there's an absence of that pharmaceutical product in your bloodstream, right? Because then the easy solution is going to be for you to go buy that pharmaceutical product, put it in your bloodstream, and have the problem, magically disappear. Well, that, as we in our chiropractic paradigm understand, that doesn't fix the cause of the problem. The only fix for the cause of the problem is to allow your body, your innate intelligence, to heal your body as it was designed to do. And so we want to make sure that our patients understand if your body is functioning without interference, then that's where you get to have the best opportunity to experience optimum health. So when we put it into that magnitude, that macro view, it makes it a person quick to realize, yeah, my condition is worse than I thought. This is not just about a back pain or a headache or absence of Tylenol. This is about how my nervous system is functioning in my body, and it's about my body's ability to actually reach and maintain optimum health, which of course we all want that for ourselves. So, and then the last part is, so from there, we want to give them the impression, we're going to do some homework here. Between now and the next time when you come back to go over your results, we'll determine if you have the correct condition that we can help you with. And if we can, and we determine that that is the case, then we can accept you as a patient. And that oftentimes is a dynamic that we may not be as comfortable with in the beginning, because for us to accept them as a patient is the opposite of, oh, please come be my patient. I need more patients, right? I got to pay off my student loans. I got to make some money and pay these bills. I got to pay my CAs, right? So please be my patient. Please be my patient. Well, a reverse psychology on that is to say, well, I am a successful doctor. I have a successful business. I'm very knowledgeable about what it is that I do. And so in order for me to accept you as a patient so I can do my best work, you have to follow my recommendations. And if you're not willing to follow my recommendations, that's okay. I'm just not going to accept you as a patient because I know if you can't follow my recommendations, your condition is going to slide downhill, and I don't want to be responsible for that. So just a clarification, because sometimes it takes a little bit of role playing and team training and confidence building to be able to take that role. But I can assure you that when you do, you will have much better follow through, much better retention. And when your patients follow your recommendations based on those two factors, what happens to their results? They get better results, is what we all want. We want to do our best work, and we want our patients to get the best results. Okay, so here's some pictures just to kind of part with a bang. Of course, my visual for me when I'm adjusting children is I want to know, how is this person going to do when they grow up, when they are an adult, when they have their own family, when they have their own children? What will they accomplish if they're doing it from a position of being subluxation free, of optimum health? How much further reaching can they go in life when their nervous system is functioning at an optimum level, right? So I think about that when I take care of children, and I think about what they'll do and accomplish in life based on how I'm helping them, how I'm serving them. And I've been in practice long enough now to be able to say that I've taken care of kids at the age you're seeing on the screen, and now they're coming in with their kids and getting their kids adjusted. And that's just a beautiful cycle. We get to help so many people enjoy quality health and optimum levels of health through their lives. Here's another child that I've taken care of. So that's just my visual. When I take care of children, I just think, okay, this is great. I'm going to give this child or this parent or this mom or this dad or this grandparent the best adjustment I can give them so they can go out and be the best that they can be for as long as possible. Here's another one of some children. So lots of children coming into the office. Let's really plant the seeds for the next generation and help them grow up. Oh, actually, and this is a picture. This boy, this is an older picture. This boy just graduated high school. So there's another example of, what will they accomplish? He's been a great patient. He comes in with his whole family. I remember the day when he came in and he was by himself. This is a fun story. I just have to tell you this. So he was by himself one day, and he always came in with his mom and his dad and his brother. And he was by himself one day, and he was laying on the table, and I said, "Hey, it's great to see you. Let's check you." I adjusted him, and then I said, "Where's your family today?" He said, "Oh no, I got a new car. I drove here." I thought, wow. Okay, I've been in practice a while. That made me realize just how long I've been in practice. I know Dr. Knitsch, you've been in practice a long time too. For me, I'm getting close to 30 years in practice, and I love it now as much as I did the day I started. It's great to help people. So here's an example of that. And then, of course, we want to teach our own children to become chiropractors, right? Hopefully, when I'm retired or gone or whatever, my kids can carry the torch. And so this is my son playing around with adjustment. Oh, I jumped ahead. But anyways, that was my son practicing his upcoming skills for someday when he's a chiropractor. So, and he's actually in college now. Let's go back to that picture, because he's in college now and he is studying to be a chiropractor. So pretty fun cycle there. Okay, so here's the wrap up of our module 2. And we've covered 8 weeks, and it feels like it's gone by in 5 minutes, but that's just me. But we've covered 8 weeks of materials, from the memorable welcome, right, that first greeting, to the subluxation education, that's the consultation, or sorry, the setting the stage, if you will, the consultation details, where we really get a thorough history of every health challenge that a person's having. We get a full list of all those issues, and then we prioritize it with primary concerns down to the top 3. Then we bring the doctor in for the exam, and we link those top 3 to the doctor's findings, which ultimately is likely a subluxation. Then we bring the CA back in to do a customized exam based on the doctor's exam. So you don't want to flip those two. You want to have the CA exam after the doctor's exam, because the impression is then that it's a customized exam based on the doctor's findings. We then talked about how to wrap up that new patient appointment, the front desk role, making sure that there's a report of findings that's scheduled, making sure that there's a payment that's collected, making sure that there's going to be a spouse that comes to the report of findings, if applicable, to help that patient get started with their care. And then today we're wrapping it up with the reactivating new patient. So that was, we just did that full summary of the whole process, which means we're going to have our report of findings. Now, I was saying May 11th on there, but actually, because we're rolling right into the next module, I think it's going to be on May 9th. So it'll be May 9th, next week, a week from today, that we will kick off the module one. Not that fast. The year's not going by that fast. Or sorry, it's going by faster than that. Maybe that's the right way to say that. But anyways, we'll kick off module 3 next week on Thursday. And I want to just, as a closing comment, I'm going to be sending you in an email. So watch for an email from us. It'll have an attachment, and the attachment is going to be, well, there's actually 3 attachments. There's going to be an attachment which is your note pages, so you can take notes during that module. So you'll want to print that out. You have it ready to go to take notes during those upcoming webinars. It'll also have the script that that will be covering in there. Of course, you'll have the scripts in your materials too, and they'll be on the website. But there's going to be specific scripts. There's a couple of them that we want to point out that are sort of top priority in the report of findings process. And then the third piece, which won't actually be in that email, it's going to be an actual packet that you'll receive in the mail. We're going to be mailing those out tomorrow. So watch for your Module 3 binder inserts, as we call them, to come to you in the mail sometime between now and next Thursday. So watch for those in the physical mail. Watch for an email with the attachments, and then we'll be all set to go for our next module. Okay, so with that, I don't see any questions. This is a good time for questions, though. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. He just jumped off. So I was hoping to check in with one of the doctors, but I don't see any hands up. So with that, I think we'll just go ahead and wrap up a little early today. And I appreciate everyone for being on the call. And that wraps up our Module 2 series. And we'll kick off Module 3 next week. So as always, thank you for being a part of DC Trainings. Enjoy the beautiful day out there, and I will talk to you next week.
If you would like to become a member of DC Trainings, be sure to head on over to dctrainings.com to get started today.